Hey everyone, this is Stacey Natal. I'm a photographer, artist, educator, and coach, and I'm coming to you from New York City. Thanks so much for stopping by my YouTube channel, Life Happens Now with Stacey Natal. So in today's video, I want to talk about I want to give you some tips on how to become a confident working photographer. So let's get started. So when I say a working photographer, I mean a photographer that gets hired by clients. So in the case, for the purposes of this video, I'm not talking about a fine art photographer. I'm talking about a photographer that actually works with clients. So that could be a headshot photographer, portrait photographer, event photographer, wedding photographer, all of that kind of stuff. So that's what I'm talking about as far as a working photographer with clients. So the first tip I want to give you is to work on your mindset. So when I say that, I'm talking about what are the words you're saying to yourself and what are the thoughts you're thinking, and how are you feeling? Are you feeling like a confident professional working photographer, or are you having some doubts? Having doubts is okay, but you want to work on that confidence. So if you're saying to yourself things like, oh, my work sucks, so and so has better photographs than me. I'll never get clients. My clients hate my work. You want to be mindful of that negative mind chatter. So instead, you want to replace it with, I'm becoming better and better every day. My work is getting better and better every day. So you can either use these as affirmations or you can journal on it. But what you want to do is you want to stop yourself. You want to notice what you're saying and what you're thinking. You want to stop yourself and redirect. Even if you don't believe, like, my work is amazing, you could say, my photography work is improving every day. So that's believable, right? If you work on your photography every day, of course, it'll get better. So that's tip number one, is to work on your mindset. Tip number two is to practice. Oh, no, sorry. Tip number two, before you practice, you want to have a basic understanding of photography fundamentals. So this means things like ISO, aperture, shutter speed, composition, and lighting. So you want to know how lighting will affect your photographs. So if the light is in front of your subject, how is that going to look as compared to if it's on the side or if it's in the back? Composition means like the layout. How are you composing your images? ISO, shutter speed, and aperture all go together. So you want to know how each one affects one another. So this isn't a lesson on this video. I'm not giving you a lesson on those things, but it's something you definitely want to become familiar with and have a really good understanding. So there are classes like on sites like Creative Live, or you can go to Skillshare to get a really good understanding of those three things. Again, I mentioned I'm not going to go through it on this video, but definitely go learn it and really understand it and know it. So my next tip for you is to practice. So let's say you want to be a confident headshot photographer. So you want to keep practicing and practicing and practicing. You can practice with your friends, with your family, because you want to know all the different like lighting scenarios, and how to practice with your lighting, and different where the lights should be when you're a headshot photographer. Are you going to do headshots outdoors? Are you going to do it indoors? What about the background? What about clothing? All of those different things you want to work out and practice. You don't want to practice on your clients. You want to practice ahead of time so that when you're with your client or when you're speaking to your client, you can educate them and say, okay, for this headshot session, it's best if you wear solid colors. It's best, bring a couple of different changes of clothing so that you're confident once you're on the job. So, and with each job that you get, you'll learn something new. And then that's even more practice for the next job. So practice, practice, practice. And even if it's like a wedding photographer or a bar mitzvah or any other kind of event, and you're like, well, how can I practice that? You can offer to photograph your friend's kid's birthday party. You can set up, in your own home, you can set up a situation that emulates an event. So put a table with, set plates around it, have your friends sit around the table and just, see how you would photograph it, how you would light it, things like that. So practice, practice, practice. And if you're a wedding photographer or some kind of event photographer and you want more practice, find a photographer that's already doing it and ask to be a second shooter or even an assistant so you can see how the main photographer is working that event. Is working that event. So practice on someone else's client, right? So not that you're going to mess up on their client, but the pressure is off because you're not the main photographer. And the main photographer is using you as kind of like an extra and as a backup. And they have their own, they know that they're the primary photographer. So keep practicing, practicing, practicing. My third tip for you is to get really confident with your gear. So know the different settings on your camera. Know how your different lenses are going to work. Like know how, like if you use a 50mm lens, that's going to look different than when you use a 70 to 200mm lens. And when you change the aperture and the shutter speed and the ISO on your camera, your images are going to look different. So do you want your images to have a blurry background? Do you want everything to be in focus? So these are the things that knowing your gear will let you know how you can get the outcome that you really want. So for me, I know I really like blurry backgrounds. So I know which lens to use. I usually use the 70-200, and I know the settings to use to get that blurry background. Also, when you're on site with a client, so if it's an event, if it's a wedding, things happen. Even with just a portrait shoot, things happen and things move quickly. So you want, like right now, like with my camera, I know it so well, I don't even have to think. Like my finger just knows how to change the settings. I'm not sitting there thinking like, okay, what setting do I need? I don't have to look in the back of my camera to figure out the settings. Like it's just like second nature already. So that's how you want to be with your gear. You want to know it inside out so that you're not sitting there thinking, what should I do? And, on the day of the shoot. Again, that comes with practice and just practice, practice, practice. That's like the main thing. Okay, the next tip to becoming a confident professional working photographer when you're working with clients is to get into a dialogue with your client. You can't ask too many questions. The more information you get from the client, the better you'll be. So ask, how many people are expected at the event? Are there people that shouldn't be photographed together? If you're photographing children, get to ask the parent, what are their favorite hobbies, or what do they like? What are their favorite foods? Just so you can become really well-versed and get as much information as you can from the client. Now, my last tip is to be overly prepared. So if you're photographing at an event, at a venue, visit the venue before you have the shoot so you could see the layout. What is the lighting situation going to be? So you're not surprised. Also, by being prepared is get your gear ready. Make sure your cards are reformatted. Everything is clear. You have room on your cards. Your lenses are clean. You know what lenses you're going to be bringing. Your batteries are charged. You have a backup camera. Even if you're doing a portrait shoot, it's good to have a backup camera because you never know if your camera is just going to fail for some reason or stop working. So you want to have backups and backups. Don't come to a 4-hour shoot with one memory card. Have a lot of memory cards with you. Have them numbered. There are lots of things that you can do to be overly prepared. It's better to be overly prepared than even just regular prepared. Another thing to be prepared, show up early to the event or the shoot. If it's a portrait session, a headshot session, whatever it is, show up early. Don't have your client waiting for you. It's best that you're there and you're waiting for them. You can, even though you probably, if you were prepared, you would have gone to the location ahead of time. But if you get there early, you can scope out you know the location, but you can scope out other areas. Like, okay, this will be good for this shot. This will be good for this shot. What is the lighting like? All of that. So be overly prepared. So I hope that helps. Okay, so to recap, on how to become a confident working photographer. And this means a photographer that works with clients. The recap is number one is mindset. So pay attention to your mindset and journal on it, because if you have negative thoughts and if you're saying negative things to yourself, you want to replace that with positives. And even if it's something that you can't believe right now, just write it out and eventually you will believe it. Understand the fundamentals of photography. Practice, practice, practice. Know your gear inside out. That means the settings on your camera and what to expect from the different lenses that you're going to use. And then, what was the next one? Know your gear. Oh, get into a dialogue with your client. Communication is key with your client. Ask a lot of questions, get as much information as you can ahead of time, and then overly prepare by showing up early, knowing the location, and all of that stuff, and having your gear ready, cleaned, memory cards ready to go. So I hope that helps. If you have any questions on this, let me know. Let me know if these are things you're already doing or what else you do to become a confident working photographer. I'd love to hear about it. And if you have any other questions, let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to answer it. So this has been Stacey Natal. I'm a photographer, artist, educator, and coach to creatives based in New York City. And thank you for stopping by the Life Happens Now with Stacey Natal YouTube channel. I'll see you in the next video.